other people that will join us as we get started. But is it okay if I go ahead and introduce you?
Yes, and also, do I get to see or hear from the people, or
You will be
not
able
in this view?
to, they will be able to chat with you. So at the bottom, those of you who
Okay.
are watching, at the bottom, there's a little chat bubble that will enable you to chat with Tiffany as she's teaching, and she'll be able to answer questions that way. And then Tiffany, depending on your comfort, you can always promote them to panelists and they can chat that way, just depending on how much time we have. So I'll let you kind of be the decider on that one, but thank you for being here. So Tiffany is an incredible life coach, and she uses Enneagram coaching as kind of her foundational, I don't know what you would call it, but like your foundation for coaching, as well as obviously your background in like inner healing stuff and just your vast amount of life experience. So we wanted to put this together today because mindset is a huge part of the healing process. And we can't heal the body without also addressing our soul and our spirit as well. And Tiffany, you just do such a great job of helping people to understand themselves. I no longer hate that I'm a 9. So I think that speaks volumes of how you communicate and how you help people to see who they really are. So I'm excited for other people to get to experience that and better understand themselves and kind of what makes them tick. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited. And can everybody hear me and see me okay?
It's a little bit quiet on my end. I can hear you though, but it's just, maybe it's my phone. So don't worry about it.
Oh gosh. Well, those of you that are here, if you could, okay, Melissa says
She
good
says
on my
it's
end.
good.
Okay, great. Good. Let's hope it is. If it isn't, just let me know. And now, Andrea, I had made you host, which I shouldn't have done. So if you could switch it back to me so I can share my screen, that would be great.
Let me see if I can do that. Let's see. Like, let's figure this out. Okay, hold on.
Maybe, while she's doing that.
Okay, it should be good.
Okay, great. Yeah, I see that I'm the host now. Perfect. So while we're figuring this out, though, I want to hear from you guys that are watching. How many of you have an idea of what Enneagram type you might be? Or you could say, like, I don't know anything about it. So maybe type in the chat box, like, I think I'm a 2, or I have no idea. Let me know as we're going. Okay, so Melissa says she's never heard of it. Good. We're starting at square one with you. That's good. Anybody else? I'm going to be sharing my screen while you guys are chatting with me. I feel so accomplished every time I share my screen. I'm just like, wow, I know what I'm so technologically savvy. Okay. Great. So most of you don't know your Enneagram type. Well, that's good because that's what this presentation is all about. So the Enneagram, I'm about to get into kind of specifics about what it is. But now, I can't see, Andrea, I can't see the chat box now that I have shared my screen. I don't know why. So if anybody has a question, do you mind just interrupting me and asking a question? That'd be great. All right. So a little bit about me, and then we'll get into what the Enneagram is and why you would care about what the Enneagram is. So my name's Tiffany Williams. I live in Northern California. I have 4 children, and the reason why they look like they're basically the same age is because they kind of are. The youngest 2 are twins, and the other 2 I had in less than a year and a half apart. So all together, all 4 kids I had in 3 years, which was insane. But I'm an entrepreneur. I started a business several years ago and learned a lot about building healthy teams and really what makes somebody successful or not in business or whatever they choose to do in life. And when the Enneagram entered my life, I started realizing the impact of how it doesn't matter how smart you are, your degrees, your level of talent. All of these things don't matter nearly as much as whether or not you're aware of and working on your own personal hangups. I found so many times when I was working with people to develop healthy teams, that's what was slowing people down. That's what was causing people not to actualize their potential. It didn't matter if they were the smartest person, that they'd been to the best schools. That wasn't as important as, are you self-aware? And are you working on stuff like, maybe you don't like confrontation? Maybe you're too confrontational. Maybe people think of you as not very friendly. Maybe you deal with a lot of fear and anxiety, and it keeps you back from realizing your potential. All of these things are really important if we want to be successful in life. And so I started incorporating the Enneagram into, at that point I was doing more business coaching, but then a friend of mine who is a mutual friend of Andrea and me, she said, Tiffany, have you heard of becoming a certified Enneagram coach? And I said to her, you're making that up. That's not a thing. And she's like, no, it's a thing. It's a thing. So I looked into it and I did the certification course. And now that's what I do for a living. I coach people, kind of like life coaching, but through the lens of the Enneagram. And why do that? Because the Enneagram is the best tool that I know that kind of puts its finger right on those personal hangups that we were talking about. It really helps you understand and expose those things that are really holding you back. And then it offers a really clear path of growth to move forward in life. Who doesn't want to move forward? So a little bit about the Enneagram. Those of you who've never heard of it, here's a little bit of background for you. And those of you who have heard of it, maybe this will surprise you, that even though it seems like a new thing, it's actually almost 2,000 years old. And, monks have even been using the Enneagram for over a century to help people in their spiritual development. And lots of different groups have used the Enneagram for, at least a century, probably more like 2 centuries. It's not a personality type, it's a defense mechanism. So let's talk about that for a minute. If you're anything like me, I love DISC, Myers-Briggs, all of these different personality typing systems. But the difference between those and the Enneagram is it really exposes your defense mechanism. So let me explain what that means. I have 9 different colored lenses, okay? And I'm gonna put one on. So when I was a child, I put on a way to view the world. It was the lens that I put on by which I viewed the world for the rest of my life, okay? Each one of us did that, but this is a defense mechanism. This is something that I constructed because I was trying to protect myself from pain and whatever I was going through as a child, right? So this is your Enneagram type. It's the lens by which you see the world that you put on as a child, but it's lying to you. Now, right now, my world looks pink. You can't tell me, Andrea, that my world is not pink. It looks pink, but this is not accurate. The world is not pink. So the problem is we view life the way that we view it through our lens, but this lens is lying to us. So the best thing about the Enneagram is it points out, hey, these are some lies that you're believing. This is the way that you see the world that isn't accurate. And it really provides a way to take the lenses off. It's a specific path of growth that will help you be the best you that you can be. So that's how it's a little bit different than other personality typing systems. And, some people say, and I was one of those people, FYI, I don't want you to put me in a box. I don't want to be in a box. Well, here's some news for you. You're already in the box. You put those lenses on, whether you want to admit it or not. You have a way of viewing the world. And so the best thing about the Enneagram is I'm actually trying to get you out of the box. I'm not trying to put you in a box, I'm trying to get you out of the box. So if you resonate with one of these types today and you feel like, wow, that really is, I think that describes my personality, my type, then remember the point is to actually grow from there. So we break free from unhealthy habits. That's one of the best side effects of kind of studying about your personality, your Enneagram type, but you still get to keep the essence of who you are. And what I love about the Enneagram most of all is it becomes what we call the rumble strip. So have you ever been driving down the road, a highway, and you kind of fall asleep for a minute or just kind of glaze over for a second and you veer too far to the left or to the right and you hit that bump, 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 that rumble strip that kind of jerks you awake and then you veer back into a healthier direction. That's what the Enneagram does for us. It points out those things about our personality, about our behaviors and thoughts that are a little bit off, like that are actually causing us to go down an unhealthy direction in our life. And it becomes the rumble strip. We notice those behaviors like, oh, I'm doing that thing. I need to veer back into a healthier path. A little bit more about the Enneagram. Ennea means 9. Gram means design. And all types are equal. So in a little while, we're going to describe what each type is like from 1 to 9. There's 9 different types. But all types are equal. So even though 9 has a greater numerical value than 1, it doesn't mean that 9 is better than 1. It just means they're different. And there are 9 basic types, like we just said, which is 9 valid perspectives of how to see the world. So as we read through some of these types, you might think, well, that is crazy. Why would anybody believe that or think that way or act that way? Remember, it's valid to them. Like their world is orange. You can't tell them that it's not. So it's valid. And what I love too about the Enneagram is it helps you realize, oh, like I don't agree. I don't act that way, but I agree that this is valid to them. And I can have compassion and a little bit more understanding about you. Like I have some family members and some friends that are so different than I am. And the Enneagram really helped me to say, okay, I totally get why you're acting that way. And I can like let it go because I understand that that's kind of like your personality type. A look inside the names of all the types. I hope you guys, I can't see your faces. So I hope you are a Disney fan like me. If not, I'm so sorry. But basically here is the Enneagram explained by Disney characters. So let's talk about type 1. The name of type 1 is called the Reformer. And the Disney character that I think is most like a reformer is Moana. And here's why. She's strong, she has a sense of mission and purpose, and she's an advocate for change. Type 2 is the Helper, and I think Snow White is a really good example of the Helper. She's sincere and warm-hearted. She has a love for others. She values relationships and acts of service. She's always helping. Type 3 is Tiana from Princess and the Frog, and that's the Achiever. So she's success-driven and pragmatic. She's inspiring, and she values admiration. Type 4 is the Individualist. Down here, Alice. She's self-aware and sensitive, creative, expressive, and very emotionally deep. Type 5 is the Investigator, Belle. She's independent, she's innovative, inventive, she's a pioneer, and she really loves knowledge and understanding. Type 6, we have the Loyalist, and I chose Rapunzel. She's committed, sincere, cooperative, but she's not sure if others are hostile or friendly. She's kind of trying to figure that out. Type 7 is the Enthusiast. By the way, I'm an enthusiast. Ariel, she's spontaneous and playful, seeking new and exciting experiences, and she needs adventure. Type 8 is the Challenger, and that's Merida from Brave. And she's self-confident, decisive, willful, heroic, and strong. And lastly, type 9 is the Peacemaker, and Andrea is a type 9. I chose Pocahontas because she brings people together and heals conflict. She's stable, trusting, and harmonious. So we're about to get into a lot more understanding of each of those types, but that's just a real basic overview, just to give you just to whet your appetite. How to use the Enneagram to grow. So I think one of the reasons why Andrea wanted me to come on here and speak specifically to you guys is because from what I understand, Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are all in some sort of health journey. And any type of journey that we encounter in life, it's really great to understand our core motivations. Like, why am I behaving the way that I do? Why is it easy for me to do such and such, but hard for me to do something else? Or, I'm really like working out every day and then I get so tired of it and I stop, or whatever it is. There's obstacles that we face in any journey. And the Enneagram is a really great way to kind of expose like, oh, maybe that's why I'm doing that, or that's why that's hard for me, or that's why I can do this. So I want to encourage you that as we go, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. My hope is that you can figure out what type you are through this presentation, and then also be encouraged about how your type can help you and hinder you from reaching your goals. So, but how to use the Enneagram to grow? You think about it as a GPS. So if I type into my phone, like I want to go get to Target or something, I have to first put in my address here at home. What's my address? And then I put in Target's address. The reason why the GPS needs to know where I'm currently at is so that it'll tell me step-by-step directions of where I want to go. So my current location, when it comes to the Enneagram, that's your main Enneagram type. My type is type 7. And it's really important that you understand your location, because if I had, directions in my phone from like another place in town to Target, it's not going to help me at all. So you have to know your current location. You need to know your Enneagram type. And then the Enneagram offers a clear path of growth, kind of like those step-by-step GPS instructions on how to get to where you want to go, which is the healthiest version of you. But you really do need to know which is your correct type. And here's why. So my friend that is Andrea's and my mutual friend, Stephanie, she and I were joking the other day about how we actually have the complete opposite paths of growth. She's a type 9 like Andrea. I'm a type 7. And in a minute, we'll get into what that means. But the other day we realized that my path of growth as a 7 is to stop being so selfish and kind of get out of my own way and like help somebody else. Her path of growth is to stop like helping and serving other people and to be a little bit more selfish and kind of try to do her own thing. So can you see that if I thought I was a 9, I would not be on the right path of growth for me. I'd be on the wrong path of growth for me. So that's why it's really awesome that you're a part of this presentation today, because I hope that you get a clue as to what type you might be. We already talked about how the Enneagram is the rumble strip. It really helps us veer back onto a path. And, it's a journey. So it takes some time. Give yourself grace. So just a couple more tips before we dive deeper into what each type is. You may hear, after this presentation, you may hear people using the Enneagram incorrectly. And what I mean by that is they might use it as a sword. So, you might hear somebody say, oh, you're such a 2, or they're such an 8. And it's like poking people with their personality. That's not helpful. And then the other thing that we can do that's not correct is to use the Enneagram as a shield. Like I could say, I could put a shield up over me like, well, I'm just a 7, can't help it. I'm late to every meeting. Sorry, I'm a 7. That's the opposite of what the Enneagram is for. It's to help us grow. So don't do either one of those things. And now let's take a deeper look inside about each of the 9 types. Now, for those of you who may have heard of the Enneagram before, a lot of times people try to figure out their type by looking at their behaviors, but that is not the best way to figure out your type. It's better to look at your core motivations. Because types can look alike. Like just because you're an organized person doesn't mean you're a type 1. You could be a type 3, you could be a type 8. So it's best to look at what motivates you. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So like I said, pay attention to motivations and think back to when you were 18 to 20 years old. That's really the best time frame to think about, now, what was I like? What did motivate me back then? I'm assuming all of you are past 20 years old here. I'm not sure. Because 18 to 20 is really when our personalities are like the biggest. It's like, we're the least self-aware, honestly. So I'm 41, and a lot of the core motivations of my type don't necessarily fit me anymore because I've grown. But back when I was 18, you better believe they did. So that's the best way to try to figure out your type. Think back to when you were younger, and let's talk about motivations. So we're going to start with type 9. Unless, Andrea, did you have any questions, or has anyone chatted anything?
Nothing in the chat. I think people are just enjoying that, and I just keep going. You're doing awesome.
All right. Okay, let's do this. So the first type that we're going to talk about is type 9. So this is Andrea's type. And this is called the Peacemaker, or some other people call it the peaceful mediator. And some words that describe them is they're receptive, reassuring, agreeable, and they can be complacent. That's one of their negative qualities. But the rest, great qualities. I chose Joey from Friends, if you're a Friends fan, to kind of show you what a type 9 is. They're happy-go-lucky. They kind of go along to get along. He hates it when his friends have any sort of conflict. Like, he wants everybody just to be happy and at peace. And I also chose Audrey Hepburn because to me, she's the epitome of grace. And just, she walks into a room and you feel like you could breathe a sigh of relief because she brings so much peace. So what we're going to talk about with each of these types is we're going to talk about each type's core fear and core desire. So we're running as far away as we can from our core fears. This is all subconsciously. And we're running as fast as we can, as hard as we can toward our core desire, subconsciously. Now remember, that's our lenses telling us that we need to be afraid of this and we need to run towards that. But that's not always the healthiest path. But having said that, think about these core fears and core desires as I explain them and see if you can figure out which one really resonates with you the most. So the core fear of the type 9 is being in conflict, being loveless, so, without love, separate, uncomfortable, unimportant, overlooked, alone, or inharmonious. And the core desire is to have inner stability and peace of mind. So really, really peace and stability and lack of conflict is very important to a type 9. Now, I will say lots of types don't like conflict, but to a 9, that is their core fear, the thing that scares them the very most. The unconscious childhood message that a 9 heard as a kid, now this is either audibly they heard this or just in their mind, is it's not okay to assert yourself. And that carries over into adulthood. And the message that their heart longs to hear is your presence matters. You matter. So I don't know, this is like, I'm going through this very quickly. There's a lot more to the type 9, but just as an overview, if you're taking notes, write that down. If any of that really connects to you, if not, you're probably not that type, but if so, you might be. But this is why 9s crush their goals, is they're dutiful, diligent, and they love routine. So they're very good. If they have a routine, they're going to work out, they're going to eat right, whatever it is that you're doing, taking your supplements, whatever, they're good at that. However, what gets in the way is something called indolence, which is the desire to be unaffected by life. So 9s may give up if it gets too hard or too overwhelming. And they also can do busy work to keep themselves from doing the important things in life. So sometimes those important things that they know they should be doing along their journey seem too overwhelming, and they might instead, I don't know, organize the pantry or something. So here's a plan for you 9s. Create an easy daily routine that is not too overwhelming. Put it in your calendar and don't let anything else be more important. Lastly, don't let idealism take over. 9s have a real special kind of romantic idealistic way that they think something should happen. And it's very hard for them if their ideal isn't actualized. So get over it, go with the flow, and just do your routine, even if things get, even if there's a little bit of unharmony in there. Let's move on to type 1. By the way, if you have any questions, I think we're going to have time for a Q&A session at the very end. So maybe save your questions or you can write them in the chat box. So type 1, we call these guys the reformers, or moral perfectionist is another way to say it. They're principled, purposeful, self-controlled, but they can be perfectionistic. I chose Monica from Friends, who, she always had to have her house in perfect order, and she really kind of needs a little bit of control. And I also chose Steve Jobs because, he was a perfectionist, but he also had a really great, he was very passionate to change the world. And so think about, the invention of the iPhone and how much it changed the way that we do all kinds of technology. And, the story goes that he threw it back to the design department 100 times until it was just perfect, because he was that perfectionist, but it really helped us. He didn't let it go until his ideal was realized. So it's actually a double-edged sword, but it's a beautiful thing. Their core fear is being bad, or evil or wrong, being inappropriate, corrupt, irresponsible, or unredeemable. And Andrea, I got your text. That's totally fine. So they really care about doing the right thing. They are driven to do the right thing, no matter what it costs their reputation, no matter how hard it is. They cannot lie. They have to do the right thing. And their core desire is to have integrity, balance, and to be virtuous and ethical, and to be a good girl or good boy. That's their core desire. So I'm married to a 1, and I can tell you, it does not matter like if it's extra pain, or if his reputation is ruined, or if he doesn't do the ethical thing, the integrous thing, he just won't not do that. He has to do that. The unconscious childhood message is it's not okay to make mistakes. And the message that their heart longs to hear is you are good. It's okay, you're good. Why ones crush their goals? They are disciplined, structured, and want to do the right thing. So they really want to take those steps necessary to accomplish their goals. They're always looking to improve themselves. But what can get in the way is perfectionism, believing that there's only one right way, and being too hard on themselves. It can cause them to stop when they haven't done it perfectly. So here's the plan for you ones out there. Make bite-sized goals. Have plenty of grace for yourself and the process. Grace is a concept that is kind of foreign to a 1. It has to be done just right. Have grace for yourself. It's probably not going to look like the way you want it to. Tell trusted friends what you're doing and ask them to give you regular encouragement and remind you that you're more than your performance. Because ones are so hard on themselves. They have an inner critic that's constantly beating them up. And so they need somebody else to come in from the outside and say, you're doing great. Here's why. All right, if we don't have any questions about the 1s, I'm going to move on to the 2s. All right, 2s are called the helpers or the supportive advisors. They're generous, demonstrative, meaning they demonstrate their love. They can be people-pleasing and possessive. So I chose Princess Di as my example. I don't know if we can't ask her if she was a 2, but she put down her crown to go get hands-on with, the needy and to help people that couldn't help themselves. She was very giving and generous. And this is Desmond Tutu, and he helped abolish apartheid. And, again, he just got down and dirty with the people who needed help. So these guys are selfless. They are super positive people and really driven to just help. Their core fear, though, is fear of being unloved, worthless, needy. They do not want to appear needy, and unwanted. And their core desire is to be loved, wanted, and appreciated. So we all want to be loved. But to them, that is what's driving them. Like, I need to be loved. I don't necessarily feel worthy unless I'm helping. But I want love. So why? Their unconscious childhood messages, it's not okay to have your own needs. Typically, their needs were not necessarily addressed as a child. And it's like, we must look at everyone else's needs. Everyone else has more problems than we do, that kind of thing. And the message that their heart longs to hear is you are wanted. The reason they crush their goals is 2s can have a very high capacity and work really hard. Like if you know a 2, they're constantly moving. My mother-in-law's a 2. She's 75 and she's still going, helping, doing all the things, volunteering. She's amazing. What can get in the way, though, is it can be hard for 2s to take time to do what's right for him or her. Someone else's need or emergency can take precedence over their own needs. So here's the plan for you 2s. Be as kind to yourself as you are to others. You would never tell others not to take time for themselves. So be kind to yourself. Tell friends and family about your health goals. Put workouts or other goals on your calendar and treat them as sacred. So instead of like, oh, can you help me move next weekend? I can, but I can't be there until after my workout class. Or like you treat those goals for you as sacred. and take up space. That's really the best advice I can give it too, is realize you're so important that you deserve to take up space. We're going to move on to type 3. I know I'm going really fast, but it's just because we have to get through 9 types, and then I want to leave some question and answer time. So type 3 is the successful achiever, or some other people just say the achiever. They're adaptable. That's one of their superpowers. Excelling, driven, then they can be image conscious. So I put Oprah on here because, I mean, what has she not done? She's author, writer, speaker. She has her own network, her own magazine. She's done it all. And she's very adaptable, if you've noticed. Like, she can be in a room with any type of person, whether it's the president or a janitor, and she knows exactly how to behave. That's the superpower of a type 3. Their core fear is being worthless, a failure, incapable, unimpressive, because it's important for them to appear impressive, unsuccessful, inefficient, and exposed, meaning they really don't want anybody to kind of peek behind the curtain. They want to, they have like an appearance, you know, that they want everyone to think of them as like successful. So they don't want to be exposed for maybe they're not as successful as they appear to be. Their core desire is to be successful, efficient, and valuable, and admired. The unconscious childhood message is it's not okay to have your own feelings and identity. And so, in other words, like, you take this as an example, Tiger Woods, who was a very famous golf player, wrote in his memoirs that he doesn't even like golf, but his dad wanted him to play golf. So that's why he laid down his life for that. And so, you know, little threes as children, they kind of are paying attention to what the important people in their life deem as successful, and they really just desire to be that, to please those people. So that's kind of the unconscious childhood message. And the message that their heart longs to hear is you are loved for simply being you. The reasons threes crush their goals, I mean, threes are going to crush goals more than basically anyone else. They're highly motivated to succeed. They have a high capacity, super high capacity. They're the people that you're like, how does she do it all? You know, and they really care about being in shape. What gets in the way is they can be more motivated by appearance than by true transformation. So for example, like, let's say you have a hormone issue and that's why it's been hard to lose weight. You know, it can be really frustrating for a 3 to have to go through the process of getting healthy from the inside out before they can lose weight. Just an example. They can burn out and don't understand the importance of resting. Resting is a foreign word for a 3. So here's my plan for you 3s. Make short-term goals that you can feel good about crushing along the way so that you get that check mark toward, you know, that you can check it off toward a longer term goal so that you don't feel like, oh my gosh, this is taking forever. And then also mentor someone else along the way and help them reach their goals. And that's the best path of growth for a 3, is to really like help other people as well. Okay, moving on to type 4. I love type 4s. They're called the Romantic Individualists, and they're expressive, dramatic. They can be self-absorbed, and they're deep. They're like our artists and poets, and they're just the deep feelers of our friends. I put Johnny Depp on there. I don't really know what his type is, but to me, he embodies a 4 because every one of his roles that he's ever played is really interesting and different. Very individualistic. I put Alanis Morissette. If you're as old as me, you might remember her from the 90s. She really kind of turned pop music on its ear because she introduced kind of like a really deep and emotional tone to music. So their core fear is fear of being inadequate, emotionally cut off, like if they're not able to express themselves, being plain or ordinary, commonplace, mundane, abandoned, defective, or flawed. And their core desire is to find themselves and their unique significance. The unconscious childhood message that they heard is it's not okay to be too functional or too happy, because if you're too happy, if things are going too well, just wait. Could be other shoes about to drop. Something bad is about to happen. So they kind of fear success or things going well, they also kind of walk around in a state of melancholy. They're not afraid of going deep and feeling deep, strong emotions. They actually kind of like melancholy. And they're the type of people that can really pull the rest of us into a deeper relationship with emotions and really the fullness of life. The message that their heart longs to hear is you are seen and loved for exactly who you are. And the reasons why they crush their goals is 4s feel a true connection to their bodies more than most anybody else, and they want to feel good. They care about their appearance. And what gets in the way is they can sabotage their process if they start feeling too good. Remember, they're like, wait, something bad's about to happen. Or if they have a bad day, they can sabotage their process because they're very feelings oriented. So it's like, oh, I feel, I just feel so burdened today by whatever. And they might even start indulging, like eating too much. And they feel like they don't like routine and can feel the need to sort out their feelings before getting something accomplished. So if they're really feeling something today, they might get nothing done, but kind of that sorting out of their process. So here's a plan. Ask a group of friends to get healthy together. Don't isolate. 4s can isolate sometimes, but they really do love being around people. Remember that the truth isn't contingent on how you feel right now. So do that workout and eat healthy anyway. And okay, so how are we doing, Andrea? How are we doing on time? We all right?
We have about 15-ish minutes, and I think Melissa just asked if it's possible to get the slide notes to the presentation at some point.
I can get you those. Yes, totally. I was expecting all of you to take these notes by your, I'm just kidding. No, that's too much to write down. No problem. Okay, we just have 5s, 6s, 7s, and 8s to go. So let's go through this as quickly as we can. Type 5s. They're the investigative thinkers. They're perceptive, innovative, private, very private, and deep thinking, whereas 4s are deep feelers. So I put on here, why can't I think of his name? This guy. Andrea, help me. Sherlock Holmes. Because what 5s are amazing at is they can pick up on all these clues that don't seem to go together, and they can synthesize the information to come up with a solution. And that's why we call them the investigators. So let's go on here. Their core fear is fear of obligation, annihilation, emptiness, incompetence, being ignorant, overwhelmed, dependent, or invaded. Basically, they don't feel like they have enough to give. Their fear is like annihilation, like there's nothing left. And so if I'm obligated to you, or if you ask anything of me, if you're dependent on me in some way, I might not have enough left for me. That's the fear. The core desire is to be capable and competent. They want to kind of squish fear by understanding and knowing all the things. The unconscious childhood message that they had is it's not okay to be comfortable in the world, because if I'm comfortable in the world, if I have everything that I want, then that means I had to depend on somebody else to help me have it. So instead, I'm just going to minimize my needs. And the message that their heart longs to hear is your needs are not a problem. Why they crush their goals is if something makes logical sense. So they're these people, they're the teachers, the college professors. They're the really deep thinkers. So if something makes logical sense to them, 5s will be very motivated to accomplish it. They're a bit stubborn and will finish something that they set their minds to. But what can get in the way is isolation. They are very private. And so, they can isolate if something goes wrong. They kind of have a mentality that anything that's, from here down is an appendage. It's not that important. So getting in touch with their body is actually one of the best paths of growth for a 5, because to them, the body's not that important. That can be hard when it comes to health goals. And the plan for 5s is don't isolate. Study your health goals until you understand the why behind them and can feel the authentic motivation to accomplish them. Get that logic going for you. Remember, getting in touch with your body is actually one of the best paths of growth for you. All right, we're moving on to type 6. These are the loyalists or the loyal guardians. They're engaging, responsible, trustworthy, and they can be suspicious. So I chose Ellen because she is one of the best examples of a type 6. She is very caring and hilarious. They're funny. But, she's a little bit, the reason why she's so funny is because she's kind of looking at life through that suspicious lens. Like, why do you do that? I also chose, I don't know if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, but I chose Samwise because he was the best friend to Frodo. He was the one that was, there. He's loyal to, and he's looking out to the Guardian. He's making sure that no harm comes to Frodo. So their core fear is fear of fear itself, danger, uncertainty, or chaos. They deal with more anxiety than most types. They fear not having support or security or guidance because they kind of don't trust themselves, so they feel like they need help from someone else to guide them. They really have a fear of being blamed or being in trouble, being alone, targeted, helpless, unsafe, or physically abandoned. And their core desire is to have security, support, and guidance. But an important distinction to make about the type 6 is there's 2 types of 6s that are very different from each other. So one is called the phobic 6, and they're the ones that really deal with the fear and anxiety. I have a client that is a phobic 6, and when we first started meeting, she wouldn't even take her dog on a walk because she was too afraid of her environment. Of course, now after coaching, she's doing amazing. But over here on the other side, you have counterphobic 6s, which are aware that something is scary, but because it's scary, they're going to do it anyway. They're going to jump out of that airplane. They're going to sign up to be in the military, different things like that. So you can see how they're very different, but this doesn't, the behavior doesn't matter. What matters is these core motivations. Do you resonate with these fears and desires? And if so, you might be a 6, even though you might look different than another 6 that you know. Unconscious childhood messages, it's not okay to trust yourself. And the message your heart longs to hear is you are safe. And why they crush their goals, they are diligent and practical. They're very good. Like they're kind of like a 2, a helper, in the sense that they're like that person that you really want on your side on a team or in a business, because they're the best. They're loyal to you. They really want to help you and do whatever it takes to get the job done. They're compliant and will follow rules if they trust their leader. Now, if they don't trust their leader, they can be kind of rebellious. They can be motivated and to be healthy because they understand the ramifications of not taking care of their bodies. What gets in the way, though, is they need guidance before they can take steps. They can feel paralyzed. And too many options can cause them to shut down. So here's my plan for you 6s. Find a trusted leader who won't mind offering plenty of guidance along the journey. Don't be so afraid of making a mistake. That can cause undue stress on the body. All right, let's talk about 7s. We have 2 more to go. 7s, I'm a 7. We're called the entertaining optimists, or the enthusiast is another way to say it. And here's some words to describe enthusiasts. They're spontaneous, versatile, acquisitive, and scattered. So I chose Joy from the movie Inside Out. I don't know if you've seen it, but to me, this is the epitome of a type 7. She is very optimistic and always sees the glass half full. But in the end, her path of growth, just like a 7, is to discover that really sadness is an important part of life that you need to embrace. Also, we have Michael Scott from The Office. I don't know if you're an Office fan, but he wants to have fun above all. And he can't stand it when Toby, the HR guy, gives him these directives like, well, you can't get drunk at the office, or, you have to actually get some work done, Michael. You can't just have fun all the time. And here's a quote: "It's never too early for ice cream." Totally a 7 thing. Core fear of being incomplete, inferior, limited, bored, trapped in emotional pain or sadness, disappointment, criticism, or missing out on something. FOMO is real to a 7. And the core desire is to be satisfied and content, basically to be happy. The unconscious childhood message of a 7 is it's not okay to depend on anyone for anything, and no one will comfort you. So really you gotta take it on yourself to make sure that you get your needs met and that you get to have all the things that you want. It's not healthy, but that's the unconscious childhood message. And the message that your heart longs to hear is you will be taken care of and comforted. So why 7s crush their goals? 7s have a high capacity and can juggle a health protocol even in the middle of a busy life. Some other types might be like, okay, when I'm done with this project, I'll take something else on. 7s are like, throw it on, baby. What's one more thing? They're early adopters and are quick to jump on board to a new trend. But what gets in the way is they may be tempted to quit when something more enticing comes along. This is the FOMO, or when things stop being fun. They don't like to be told what to do or follow specific routines. So that can be hard when you have someone, kind of coaching you and sharing with you, like, really, this is what's best for you along your journey. That can be hard for a 7. And the plan that I have for you 7s, including me, is to have short-term goals that really excite you and reward yourself along the way. Ask friends to keep you accountable and find your own creative way to fulfill the requirements of your protocol. Do it the way that you think is fun. Okay, 8s, this is the last one, and then we're going to be done and ready for questions. So 8s are the protective challenger. Other people call them the challenger. I say protective challenger because 8s get a bad rep. I'll explain why in a minute. They're self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. So let's take Martin Luther King, for example. And of course, we have notorious Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But let's take Martin Luther King. He was a challenger. He was bold, strong, very confrontational. However, he was a healthy 8. He did it to save and protect his people group. So he actually risked his own life to protect his people group. And that is an example of a healthy 8. Some 8s, the reason why they get a bad rep is they can be bullies. But when they're healthy, you want them on your side. Maybe you know somebody like that, like Martin Luther King. They are super protective. Their core fear is being weak or powerless, underestimated, disempowered, humiliated, vulnerable, harmed, controlled, manipulated, or at the mercy of injustice. And their core desire is to protect themselves. So that's why they've got that real strong confrontational exterior. The unconscious childhood message is it's not okay to be vulnerable or trust anyone. They typically encounter some kind of injustice as a child. And the message that their heart longs to hear is you will not be betrayed. So why 8s are great at crushing their goals? They have a lust for intensity and truly enjoy doing hard things. 8s have a huge capacity and don't need much downtime. They feel deeply rewarded when they win or do well. They're kind of internally rewarded. What gets in the way? Their lust for intensity can cause them to be short-sighted and not consider long-term ramifications. They can overdo it and then burn out. They can isolate and give up when they get stressed. It's kind of shocking, but 8s that seem like these powerful people, they can actually totally kind of run away when they get stressed. A plan for you 8s. Don't make such grandiose goals and realize that taking small, steady steps are just as important as taking the huge, hard steps. That rush of intensity isn't the only way to measure whether or not you're on the right track. So, having said all that, remember, it's important to know your current location, your Enneagram type, and there's a path of growth laid out for each type that helps you grow. Also, it exposes some of the behaviors that we might do that are unhealthy. That becomes our rumble strip. And if you're interested in hearing more, I would love to share a way that you can get in touch with me and I could share some of what I do with you. But Andrea, in the short time that we have, do we have any questions or anything that anyone would like to hear?
Let me take a peek here. So, okay. So yeah, please feel free to submit your questions. I just wanted to say this was fantastic because even though I know my type and I know like my stress triad and like I still resonate pretty strongly with like a 6 and a 3 when I'm stressed. That's where I like divert to. It really helps me with my teams. So like the teams that I
Yeah.
work with, the teams that I work with at church or in life, because it helps me to understand why something they say might trigger me. And it also it helps me to understand like, oh, they're a 1. They didn't mean that to trigger me.
Right.
They meant that because they're seeing something that I'm not seeing. And just because it feels confrontational doesn't mean it is confrontational. And for somebody who really hates conflict,
Right.
it's helped me so much. So I want to see what other people, because we do have some stuff coming in. So Melissa says, I find that my type when I was 18 to 20 is very different from what I resonate now as my type. So not sure. Totally. So maybe a good question for that, because I know that I have done some Enneagram tests before. What would you say is like the best way, aside from obviously working with you, because that would be the best way. Truly, I'm not just saying that to toot her horn, but like genuinely, it just helps to get somebody else in your brain, I think, aside from a paper. What would be the best way for people to figure out their type?
I don't know, Melissa, if you have taken an Enneagram test before. Caveat is in my experience, Enneagram tests are like only 40% effective.
Yeah.
But if you haven't taken one through the lens of like when you were 18 to 20, maybe go back and take it. The best free test, in my opinion, is on yourenneagramcoach.com. Yourenneagramcoach.com. That has a great free test, and try to think about it in terms of how you were when you were 18 to 20. And of course, like you said, that is one of the services that I love doing, is we call it a typing interview, where I interview people and ask them all the questions, help them dig out, flesh out their motivations. Sometimes we don't know why we do the things we do. So if you're still curious after taking, thank you for writing that in the comments. If you're still curious after taking that test, hit me up. But Melissa, that's not uncommon that your type would be pretty different when you were younger versus older. It's going to probably be more true when you were 18 to 20. Sometimes you can go all the way to 30.
Okay.
So think about that, if that helps.
It's okay. So she said, hold on. I think one of my children is trying to.
Yes, I see it. Yes.
Okay.
I've grown a lot since then, and I've done a lot of self-exploration during college. So my motivations are different now. Do I still view through the younger lens? Yes. Yeah. This lens is still going to kind of be primary, even though we've grown. So like the fear of missing out, for example, is something I've really tried to conquer, but it still pops up all the time. I just am aware of it now, but it's still there. So yes, you would want to go on the path of growth for that original type, that you can identify with more from when you were younger. I hope that makes sense, Melissa. If not, Andrea, can you give them my email address or?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. You can actually, let me put my website in here, and there's a way to contact me from there. There you go.
There you go. Perfect.
And you can always email me that way.
I love that. No, and I think, honestly, you hit the nail on the head for so much of this, because I think, even with like the DISC test or some of the other like personality, Myers-Briggs, etc., how it's always been used in relationships as like focusing on the negative, instead of, and maybe not even intentionally, but instead of like, or even as a defense mechanism of, this is just how I am.
Just how I am. Right.
When it's not. And so I love, the mutual friend that we have, Stephanie, because we're both 9s and we actually can challenge each other because we're both on the same growth path. And we both know, like, this is an area of weakness for me. And I know my fear. So help me to practice this with me. Let's walk it out,
Good.
Which can be super helpful. But even
like you said, sorry to interrupt, but like you said, it's so awesome to know and identify what your fear is.
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Because
Yeah, keep
when
going.
you
Sorry.
know, no, because when you know what that fear is, you know why you're responding a certain way and why it matters to you, why about your experience. So like one of my best friends is a 7, and we would do we do things, we do life very differently in a lot of, I'm like, I could not thrive in that level of spontaneity. It would kill me. But for her, she loves it. It's awesome. It's great. And so learning that, it just helps in all of the areas. So Carolyn said, let me just pull that up here. How to narrow down between two types, maybe a 2 or a 6.
That's a very common, it's very hard sometimes to figure out whether you're a 2 or 6. So there is a website called, well, I don't remember what the website's called, but if you just Google the Enneagram Institute, it might even be enneagraminstitute.com, but I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. But Google the Enneagram Institute, and then I think you have to click on like how it works or something. It's not super
Yeah.
intuitive, but click on how it works and then click on misidentifications. So misidentifications helps you compare two types. So you can click on like 2 and 6 and it'll tell
Yeah.
you the differences between 2 and 6. And sometimes that's very helpful to go, oh, I don't do that, but I do that. So that's my best advice for that.
Absolutely. And I have found, and this may or may not help people who are watching, I have found that actually as I've healed from like past hurts and stuff, and as I've grown, I'm less of an unhealthy 9 now, and I can pull on my 8 wing, like when I need to, which is I can be the challenger that I actually is part of my design and not hate it. Like I don't despise that about myself anymore, which is awesome because I'm like 99% sure that my firstborn is an 8. So it actually helps me in my parenting as well, like to understand my children and that she's not just trying to drive me crazy and bust up my routine and all of that. She's probably
Amazing.
an 8 with a 7 wing. I'm like 90% sure. So I'm like, she's not trying to drive me crazy. Like it's just how God made her. So it really does help in all areas. It helps us to confront the areas that we need to, like even in relationships. I know that we had a lot of conversation about my husband at one point because I was like, no, he's got to be like, I don't know what he is. And you were like, no, he's a 1. And I was like, no. I think those might, because I struggle with that. Because he doesn't care about keeping the peace. He does not care about keeping the peace. And I am like high priority. For him, it is a low priority.
Right.
So, but it helped so much just in relating to each other. And so I think this is awesome. If you ladies end up doing any of those tests or reaching out to Tiffany, I would love to hear when you figure out what your type is so that I can better facilitate for you. It just helps me understand you better. And the other reason, I know we're kind of running out of time and you got to run and pick up your kiddos, but that we wanted to do this was actually so that you can also understand why sometimes we want to run away from things. So like if we're not reaching our goals, like she was talking about what your core motivators are. When we don't reach our goals, we all have different ways that we cope with that. So I will lean towards a 3 and just work really, 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 really hard. Like I will get it done. I am loyal. I'll do it till I'm dead if I have to. And other people process that a little bit differently. So understanding that about yourself can actually help you move through the Happy Hormones program when things don't go the way that you expected them to, because maybe a goal had to shift or something else came up. So this is one of the other reasons why I wanted her to come in here was to help you guys understand that about yourself so that we can help facilitate you moving through. Let's see here. So Carolyn says, do you need our emails? Nope, I have everybody's email, so I can certainly send that out, or we can post it, the slide deck in the Facebook group once we have that available to us. But Tiffany, I want to honor your time. Thank you so much for being.
Much. I really enjoyed it. I hope you ladies found this to be helpful and
super helpful.
you. And then I just love you, Andrea. I just love what you're doing. And
Oh,
I
thank
just,
you.
yeah, I mean, you're such an impressive leader. So thanks
Thank
for
you.
inviting me in. And I'll send you, thanks. I'll send you the presentation and please feel free to send it out. And to even to whoever wasn't able to come, that's great.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Your day too. Okay, we'll
Bye,
talk soon.
everyone.
Bye-bye.